Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. I'd like to move in and take your seats. I'm Bob NBrooke and I'm your chairman for today. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to the hybrid meeting, to those online and everybody in the room. Today's reflection will be delivered by past President Robert Fisher, followed by the loyal toast by President Catherine. Please ensure that your glasses are charged. Robert.
Thank you, Bob. Our lungs play an important role in keeping us healthy. The fact is, like the rest of our body, our lungs need daily care and attention. Simple things like keeping active, watching our posture, and staying hydrated can apparently help keep these vital organs in good condition. More broadly, there's no one way to be healthy, but a healthy lifestyle may simply mean doing things that make us feel good. For me, it means walking every morning for quite a distance. For others, it may mean eating fast food only once a week, or spending quality time with loved ones every other day, or running a marathon once a year, or following a special diet, or, heaven preserve us, never having a sip of wine. Wellness is what results from the pursuit of lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. It encompasses mental, physical, and emotional well-being and involves elements like nutrition, physical activity, stress management, relationships, and life choices. Easy. For good food and friendships through Rotary, we give thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Rotarians and guests, a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Please be seated. We'll be taking a break until 1:10, and for everyone online, you'll be put into breakout rooms. For Australia, Mark will be speaking about why lung health matters and be more fully introduced shortly by our chair of the day, Rosemary Nixon. In the meantime, can you please join me in acknowledging and welcoming Mark? As club guests, we have with us today Sonoran Nove, who's going to update us on the Cambodia project, and Shirin and Stanley, who are going to be inducted into our club today. Shirin is accompanied by her friend, Gabby Phillips. Would you please acknowledge as well and make them feel welcome? Now, we have a number of visitors in our audience today, so could I ask you to please stand when I read out your name, and then we'll do a round of applause at the end. We have Anthony Austin, guest of John Saunders. Andrew Maurice, a guest of Deb Ian Fu, and my wife, again today, Jane DeGitt. Please make everyone welcome. Now, could I ask Shirin Anwar and Stanley Ho to please come forward for induction into membership of the club? And I'll also call on sponsors Idan and Amit to come forward as well to introduce them. Idan, can I ask you to please introduce Shirin to us?
President Catherine, it gives me much pleasure to introduce for membership to, it gives me much pleasure to introduce for membership of the club, Shirin Anwar, who holds the position of Senior Investment and Engagement Officer at Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions, and she will have the classification of State Government Business Development. She will be member of TURAC #1 group and will be known in the club as Shirin. Her mentor will be Sandra Hills. Thank you.
Thank you. And Amit, can I get you to come and please introduce Stanley to us?
President Catherine, it gives me much pleasure to introduce for membership to the club Stanley Ho. He holds the position of a business developer investor and will have the classification of wellness entrepreneur, and will be a member of Central 2 Group and known to the club as Stanley. He's very user-friendly, so I invite you to have a chat with him.
Shirin and Stanley, We welcome you as members to the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Today, you enter an organisation of more than 1.2 million members with close to 37,000 clubs worldwide. We're in 221 countries, truly embracing the internationality of Rotary. We believe that you have the personal and professional qualities that will ensure the principles of Rotary will be safe in your keeping. The Rotary badge you'll receive in a moment, I hope you will wear with pride. It indicates your commitment to the object of Rotary, to which we all aspire, to encourage the ideal of service above self. We expect that you will become ambassadors for us to the community in which you live, and we ask that you convey Rotary's aims to all that you do. We look forward to pursuing with you the great work of Rotary, so that this expectation I offer you the right hand of fellowship and ask the members rise and join me in welcoming you to the membership of our club. Please be seated. Shirin, I'd like to now invite you to respond.
I've printed out my speech just in case my mind goes blank. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I am so proud and excited to be standing here today as the latest member of the Rotary Club. Thank you for welcoming me to your incredible organization and for the amazing opportunities I will embark on to serve our community and grow as a leader, and while getting to know all of you. I remember watching a documentary on Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation and thinking, wow, the billionaires can really make a difference in this world. And today, thanks to Rotary, I realized that I can as well. I can't wait to start this journey, to learn from all of you, work alongside you, and do my part to create positive change and bring hopes to those who need it most. I am very excited. Thank you all.
Well done. And Stanley, can I ask you to respond, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Stanley. I'm actually felt that after her, I feel a bit stressed. But anyway, I think I felt quite lucky when I first came to the club talk and lunch, and I actually feel quite lucky to meet one of the past president, Christopher Wang. And from our conversation for 1 hour, it made my decision very clear. I want to join the club. I remember Christopher mentioned to me that later you will understand what do you mean by you have the blood of Rotary. And it's a very true blood and the connection with the members. And I always believe in people, even though I'm actually working in artificial intelligence as my education background. I always believe in human and the connection. I always believe in future, our next generation. So that's me. Thank you.
I'd now ask David Hayes to join me on the podium to talk about the Rotary Club of Melbourne project lead for the International Committee and further introduce our speaker today to update us around the Cambodia High School project that's been supported by our club. So David, over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon. I'm a 16 years old girl forced to drop out of school and worked in garment factory. And then she would be trapped in the cycle of poverty. And that girl was me. Today, I stand before you as a testament to the transformative power of education and community support. Again, my name is Simon, and I'm here to share how organizations like yours have changed my life and the lives of countless of others in Cambodia. 18 years ago, I was that girl who had to leave school due to family economic hardship. I became a factory worker facing unpleasant working conditions, following my mother's footsteps and approached here by many teenager girls in my situation. I thought my future was set in stone with no way out of poverty. But I refused to let my circumstances define me and my future. My life changed when I discovered Empowering Youth in Cambodia, EYC. This organization, which provides free education to the poorest children in Cambodia, became my backbone. Because through EYC, I was able to learn English, computer skills, leadership skill, re-enroll back to the formal education, receive scholarship for extra classes because I dropped out 2 years to catch up with science subjects. I was awarded to attend private school, and I pursued my bachelor degree, including a 1-year exchange program in Boston. And growing up in the slum community in Phnom Penh, I saw many illegal activities surrounding me. I also saw the silver line when I met EYC. I fight for education. I was the first one in my family, my whole relative, I can say the whole village, that I'm the first one to go to college and study abroad. I'm a student. From a student, I become a volunteer, a program manager, a director, and now a board member at EYC. Each step taught me valuable lessons and helped me grow. And that's the reason I keep telling people I'm here for more than 10 years, because I learned a lot. My journey with Rotary began in 2010, when I was first invited to give a speech in Melbourne, to the club in Melbourne. And as David mentioned, in 2016, I was honored to be elected as the first female president of the Rotary Club, of the local Rotary Club in Phnom Penh, where we focus on community service. Today, I stand before you as an Australia Award Scholarship recipient, pursuing a master's degree in early childhood education at Macquarie University, Sydney. This opportunity, sponsored by Australian government, has made my dream of studying of master in Australia come true. I chose Australia because of the quality education system and the nature of early childhood is not yet provided in Cambodian university. And of course, the prestigious opportunity to connect with international networks like you all. Organizations like Rotary, EYC are changing lives. Every day, the Rotary scholarships for high school students, prevent dropouts, and enable young people to reach their full potential. As the program director at EYC, I oversaw after-school program directly sponsored by the Rotary, and I mentor hundreds of students who elected for the project to not drop out and help them consult which university they want and what kind of subjects they need help at school. These programs don't just change one life, they transform entire communities. They create ripple effect, inspiring others to dream big and work hard. And I've seen firsthand how this support can turn a factory worker into a community leader, international scholarship recipient, and become a global citizen. I will return home in January, and I plan to continue cycle of empowerment. My goal is to run preschools in Cambodia and run projects to help factories workers, providing them positive parenting course. And many of these workers are less educated and become mothers at young age, just as I could have been. As I stand here today, I am reminded of the incredible power of education and community support. My story is just one among thousands that organizations like yours have helped write. I ask you to continue your invaluable support. Every scholarship you provide, every program you fund has the potential to change a life dramatically. Your support doesn't just educate, it inspires, it empowers, and transforms communities. Thank you so much for your time, your support, and for joining us in making the world a better place for children in need of education. Together, we can break the cycle of poverty and create a better future for all. Thank you.
I think another round of applause is warranted, Simon. Congratulations. You are truly an inspiration. Now, can I please ask Past President Reg to come up and talk to us about Around the Bay bike raffle?
Thanks very much, President Catherine. This is going to be quick because I don't want to crowd the guest speaker, but every year we run a number of events around the Smith family Around the Bay bike ride. For example, next Sunday there'll be a select group of our members kitting out in their Lycra to pedal the way up from Sorrento to Melbourne. And that's one of the fundraisers. Another adjunct to that is our annual raffle, and this year again, my Ride bicycles from Collingwood have again donated a raffle prize of $2,000 to as a gift voucher. And what I'm here to do today is to say tickets are on sale, are available today. For the Rotarians present in particular, please stop by. I'll be sitting at the table at your exit to hand you some tickets and to take note of who you are. The essentials are there's one prize, it's the bike or the bike gift voucher. Tickets are $5 each. They come in books of 10. If you buy the whole lot, it's $45. Okay, so there's a 10% discount. The winning ticket will be drawn at the Rotary office on Wednesday, the 30th of October at 12 noon. And of course, the most critical thing to stress is that, again, another thing that Rotary does is supports kids in need, the kids who need to be supported in their education. Otherwise, their economic situation would have them dropping out. The Smith family has an amazing Learning for Life program, which we support, and pretty much every cent you spend on raffle tickets will be getting to the Smith family for that program. So let's all get together, dig deep, and support these kids in need. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Reg. Just a couple of quick notices. For our club members, you'll have in your inbox email correspondence in regards to the upcoming AGM and board director election. So if you can please turn your attention to that. And we've also got an email on regionalisation. So please make sure you have a read of that. That went out yesterday. And I'll now pass over to Rosemary Nixon, our chair of the day, who's going to come and introduce our guest speaker more to us. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Mark NBrooke, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Lung Foundation Australia. Lung Foundation Australia is Australia's leading lung cancer charity, supporting over 4,000 people each year via its telehealth and face-to-face specialist lung cancer nurse program. And they were appointed to advise the government in 2002 on federal and state governments on lung health policy, including the National Targeted Lung Cancer Screening Program implementation, which will commence next July. And Mike will tell us about that. He was also previously head of Asthma Australia, but his term finished on the day that of the event of the thunderstorm asthma. You might mention that very ironically. Mark, thank you very much for coming. We'd like to hear about why lung health matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and good afternoon. Thank you, President Catherine. Why does lung health matter? If I was to open your chest up right now, take one of your lungs out, dissect it and lay it out, it would cover a tennis court. That's how big. Your lungs are the original filters. Think of it like those of you that drive a Mercedes, but more expensive. They're very, very good at keeping stuff out of your body. They act as a filter to stop all of the particulates that we don't want in our body from getting in there, and then they push out all of the bad stuff back into the air. Now, I'm from Queensland. I've been warned I shouldn't talk about the grand final, but I am a Fitzroy supporter from many years ago. And I equally have a very unique sense of humour. Some might say a dark sense of humour. So what I'd like to do is probably take you through a bit of an anatomy about why the lungs matter through a number of analogies, give you an understanding about lung health and where it sits in the health ecosystem, and then tell you about the exciting things that are happening in lung health right now. It has been in the news for the last 5 years, and in my office there is a $200 fine if we say the C word, and the C word is COVID, because I think people got over it very quickly. But COVID really garnered the attention of Australians on their lungs like nothing else before. But I want to go back in history and draw a thread between Sir John Monash, as one of your founding members, and lung health. So as many of you know, Sir John Monash in World War I led a magnificent group of men and women. And Sir John Monash was particularly interested in what happened to his men's lungs as a consequence of fighting against an enemy that was using mustard gas. And we saw, and many of you may be aware, we saw thousands of Allied soldiers die as a consequence of inhaling bad products. And so John was very fascinated by the notion of what lung health did. And indeed, he established one of the first scholarships that looked at lung health. He went back, when he arrived back in Australia, he wanted to follow up with his men, particularly those that were inflicted by mustard gas. So the thread between why I'm standing with you today and your Rotary Club is quite a long historical thread. I've also got, as I said, a reasonable black sense of humour. So when my icon, Shane Warne, passed away, I woke up that morning furious at him because he died of a heart attack and not lung disease. And those of you that know Shane, and I've had the privilege of working with him over many, many years, would know that he was a smoker. And let's face it, smoking gives lung health a bad reputation. But it's not on me as the Chief Executive Officer to condemn smoking. Our great Governor General, Sir Quentin Bryce, tells a story as my former patron in another life of giving birth to her fourth child at Ilfracombe Hospital in central Queensland, where I grew up, and the matron giving her a cigarette in a hospital. It was a societal norm. And through our work and the work of many other health charities, we've seen a decline in smoking rates to now where we're talking about less than 10% of the adult population is smoking. But you will not hear me condemn individuals, because in demonising smoking, we've had the unintended consequence of placing a stigma on all lung health disease. And that stigma has strangled research investment, community empathy, government attention, and public considerations of lung health. And I'll give you a few examples. A couple of years ago, within the federal government's cabinet, there were 16 members of the cabinet. 8 had lost a parent or a relative to lung cancer. Not one member of that cabinet would talk about that publicly, as was the shame of knowing someone who had died of smoking-related illnesses. So if we just reflect on that for a second, we went and did a unique experiment. I have a great relationship with my colleagues from the McGrath Foundation, and I hope you will get them to speak here. It's not a competition. Just give me more money. We did an experiment where we put a McGrath Foundation nurse fundraiser on one street corner and a lung cancer nurse and fundraiser on another corner, both with exactly the same white T-shirts on saying, I'm raising money for lung cancer and I'm raising money for breast cancer. Now, it will probably be of no secret to you members about which one came away with more coin in their pocket that day. 1 in 3 Australians, when we surveyed them in 2022, believed that if you got lung cancer, it was your own fault and you didn't deserve the same level of gold standard care that someone with breast cancer does. But I can tell you in 2024, more people will die of lung cancer than breast cancer, prostate cancer, and bowel cancer combined. More people this year will die of airways disease and lung cancer than cardiovascular and Alzheimer's combined. Now, these statistics are not made up. You can go to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare and find them. And we find ourselves at a junction at the moment in lung health where we need to talk more positively about what lung health matters. So in the last 6 years as Chief Executive, I'm going to wander a couple of stories here and someone's going to give me a nod at 15 minutes. My chairperson, Professor Christine Jenkins AM, a world-leading respiratory clinician, came to me on the 9th of January and said, do we have a business continuity plan? And I went, we do. Has one of our buildings burnt down? What's going on? And she said, there's this thing in China. It's just killed a colleague of mine, a research colleague of mine, and I don't know what's going on, but it has all the hallmarks of SARS. She called that on the 9th of January. We had a pandemic being called on the 23rd of March. Christine came to me a couple of days after that and went, something really is happening in the world of lung health. I said, what's that, boss? And she said, I've just had 3 colleagues of mine in Milan in Italy die. Senior respiratory clinicians operating a Milan hospital died from infectious diseases. And we began to understand what we now know to be COVID-19. But COVID had a silver lining. It got us to start thinking about our lungs, much the same as on my last day at asthma, November 16th, 2016. I can still remember the day very visibly because I was sitting just down the road having a farewell lunch with my staff and my board when everyone's pages, they didn't explode, everyone's pages started to ring. And we ended up, senior respiratory clinicians are going, I've just been called back to the hospital. I've just been called back. There's people showing up at emergency department, not able to breathe. And that was the asthma thunderstorm event that tragically killed 9 lives. You might recall in 2019, 2020, we had massive bushfires all across the country. And I would imagine everyone here that was in the city that day would know what it was like for the first time to be truly breathless, because you couldn't walk outside your office or your home and have an experience of not being able to breathe in very tiny bushfire particles. So here we are. We've got something the size of a tennis court when I spread it out that links and keeps your body safe from all the contaminants in the air. And we know that it's not just a smoker's disease. We know that it kills more people than any other chronic illness. Yet we have very little attention on lung health. No one's showing up to do a pink test. No one's showing up to do a bike ride. No one's showing up to talk about lung health in a positive way. But 3 things have happened in the last 5 years, which I think are worthy of mention. The first one is hands up if you don't have marble in your kitchen at home, but you used artificial bench tops. And I can't use the brand name because I've currently got an injunction against me. But if you did use a product that begins with C and ends in stone, please, if there's lawyers in the room, just cut me some slack this week. If you did use that product, could you imagine that you were contributing to the death of 6,000 tradesmen and women? So you might have heard this word silicosis. It's been around since we were building the pyramids 2,000 years ago. But silicosis that attracted young men and young women building our wonderful cathedrals here in Melbourne, they got their silicosis in their 60s and 70s, much the same as mesothelioma and asbestos. You know, workers retiring would develop this insidious disease. What we saw with young men and women working with artificial benchtop stone was that they were being diagnosed with something called, and it's one of Rosemary's colleagues, as someone who works in occupational medicine, Ryan Hoy, Acute silicosis. Now, let me give you an example of what an acute silicosis patient looks like, because I've sat through many autopsies. These are young men, 25 to 35, largely unskilled, great tradesmen, some tradeswomen, but great tradesmen. They've normally got a wife or a partner, a couple of kids, a mortgage. They don't have income protection insurance. They don't have a whole lot of super, but they're proud of their craft. And they install that in the majority of kitchens across Australia. As a consequence of cutting that without appropriate safety measures, they developed what's known as acute silicosis. Acute silicosis is more deadly than every cancer I can name. These young men, from point of diagnosis to the day they die, where they are literally drowning with dust in their lungs, have 5 years. 5 years. And as of earlier this year, the federal government, to their great credit, banned the importation, sale and installation of artificial benchtop stones, benchtops. So now architects, of which my son is one, have to learn to use new products that will be safer to keep Australians' lungs healthy. That's the first example of what the Lung Foundation has done. The second example is about lung cancer screening. For those of you that are current smokers who have smoked in the past and who are aged between the age of 50 and 70, from 1 July next year, you will be getting a free CT scan every 2 years. And why is that? 70% of all patients diagnosed this year in Australia will be diagnosed with late stage lung cancer. That's stage 3 and stage 4, when, as Rosemary can tell you, late stage cancer disease is literally incurable. 80% of the patients I work with are dead within 9 to 12 months. 80% at late stage diagnosis. From next year, we will have the world's first targeted lung cancer screening program, bulk billed through MBS, which will save 12,000 lives over the next decade. Now, I know of no other public health measure in my long career in working this that has that opportunity to make that difference. The great news is that Heart of Australia, and I'd strongly encourage you, if you can get Dr. Rolf Gomes, the CEO of Heart of Australia, to come and talk to you, bring his toy. Rolf is bringing the first mobile, battery-powered, solar-powered CT to rural and remote communities in Australia, so our fellow citizens that live outside of Australia, outside of major centres, can have CT scans in their own community. And it's a global first. There'll be 6 of those double B trucks going throughout Australia, delivering targeted lung cancer screening. So that's our second win, we think. Our third win is somewhat controversial. I'm not a big fan of X or Twitter or TikTok or the other ones that people in my office who work from home tend to spend a whole lot of time doing. But I can tell you that I have blocked more people in the last 18 months as we debated vaping in this country than ever before. And it has divided substantial parts of our own academic community and the community. So everyone might be aware that there are now 2 areas of vaping. There are e-cigarettes for smoking cessation, which as of yesterday, you must go to a pharmacist to see. They've been outlawed in Australia. You can't go to your local service station, your local corner store and buy this under the counter anymore. You can't import it from overseas. You probably can and they will get through. But it will now be illegal and attract substantial penalties, not for the individual who we don't seek to persecute, but rather the companies that are peddling what was the greatest lie in lung health in the last decade. So if you want to quit smoking, by all means, talk to a general practitioner. Don't do what the UK did and go and talk to the local Ampol service station spotty 15-year-old who will give you a vape. Don't take, if anyone in the room has hypertension, do you go and see Ampol for your hypertension medication? Because if you do, I'd ask you to probably reconsider your prescribing habits. But that's what the vaping lobby wanted us to do in this country. They wanted to make it so accessible so accessible to our young people with no thought of the long-term consequences. So Australia was sold an absolute lie when it comes to e-cigarettes. It's third-line therapy for people that are trying to quit. The reality is, as a clinician, and I can tell you this now, the vast majority of people quit unaided, going cold turkey after multiple attempts, and hooray to them. That's great. That's great for your lungs. Not as good as wine. Well, I agree with you. Wine's good for your lungs. It's okay. Not so good for your liver or other parts of your body, but wine is okay with me. But what we were told was, and what we saw was an entire generation. Now, if any of you have got children or grandchildren, been to an 18th or a 21st or a wedding recently, you will have seen how insidious vapes are amongst our young people. They were literally at every party. I was at a 21st birthday for my nephew on the weekend and was amazed at the number of young people. I would suggest 8 out of 10 never smokers vaping. Now, what we know is that is not safe for your lungs. Go back to my tennis court analogy. Your lungs are designed to be filters, and putting anything in your lungs other than clean air is going to damage them. The sad reality is it took us 60 years to make the correlation between tobacco smoking and lung cancer and several other cancers, or the 15 other cancers. It may take us 50 years to work out that vaping, if we didn't put that genie back in the bottle, was going to make a difference. So that legislation that was only enacted and came into reality yesterday, we hope will save lives, and save lives over the next 20, 30, 40 years. I have one last story, which I normally end on. So Dame Quentin does not mind that I tell this story. So I do have permission from her. As my patron, I have a very good friend. As a matter of fact, my best friend in the world is called Quentin, the guy. And he phoned my EA. Well, he didn't. I thought he phoned my EA. And my EA said, "Oh, Mark Quentin's on the phone for you." And I went, "Okay." Great. Picked up the phone and went, "What do you want, dickhead?" "I'm really, really busy. I'm dealing with a pandemic. There's lots of stuff on at work at the moment. I don't have time for you today. Talk about something else." And in this demure comment, she said, "Mark, it's the Governor General, Your Excellency." I said, "Good afternoon, Your Excellency. What would you like me now to do?" And she said, "Just keep doing what the Lung Foundation has always done. Standing up for people's rights in terms of positive lung health, thinking about stopping lung health in its tracks and preventing it." And as she finally said, let's not repeat the lessons we didn't learn of history, because Quentin, and I'm allowed to call her that, lost 4 members of her family to lung cancer. 4. And she is incredibly generous of heart and spirit in allowing me to tell that story. So my take home from today is smoking is really hard. It's really hard to quit, but don't give up. Quitting at any stage of your life will make a huge difference. Try to keep your young people educated about their lung health. Think more carefully about the environment and the air quality that we breathe, because we now know, we were saying to Rosemary before, the first recorded death of a child in a coroner's court in the United Kingdom at a 4-year-old child linked to air quality was recorded last year. The child lived next to a main road, which had a substantial thoroughfare of trucks going back and forth, diesel engine. She was killed by diesel particulates. It's the first time in my professional life I've heard of a child dying of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a disease that normally kills many of us in our twilight years. So air quality matters. And finally, think about our own biases and stigma. If someone comes to you and says, "I've got a lung disease," or "I've got lung cancer," if your first words are, "I didn't know you smoked," rather than, "I'm sorry to hear you've got a cancer diagnosis, how can I help you?" then you need to check that balance. And why do I end on that? Because in 2013, my mother Roberta passed away from stage 4 lung cancer after 6 months of being diagnosed. My mum was a general practitioner with over 50 years practicing experience and didn't recognise the signs. And to her credit, again, of her generation, growing up in a small country community, we had her farewell, and all the women from my dad's Rotary Club and my mum's tennis club and other people in the community, because she was a local councillor as well, came and said, Mark, did your mum nip out the back and have a smoke? I never saw her with a cigarette in her hand. Went, no, she didn't. But would it stop you loving her any less? So thank you for the great honour of addressing Australia's first Rotary Club. Thank you for the great honour of being in the presence of a club that has celebrated the life of Sir John Monash. As a student of history, I've always admired that particular chapter of his life, and I've really enjoyed that. And I hope in answering some of those questions with my usual stupid Queenslander sense of humour that I've given you a small insight into why lung health matters. Thank you.
It's terrific, Mark. We've heard how important it is not to demonise smokers, which has been great, and also that emphasis on air quality, which Robert mentioned in his reflection. For corporate questions, I think we've probably got time for about one question. Bruce.
I'm interested in the addictive qualities of smoking. Of course, there's a social aspect, and you like to be doing the same as your friends, and but to what extent is nicotine an important component of the addiction, and what can be done to reduce nicotine in cigarettes?
Oh, that's a great question, Chris. And if I could kill you with 1,000 PowerPoint slides, I would absolutely get them up here. You're right. It's actually not the tobacco. The tobacco burns a tar and creates the tar which goes into your lungs. That in and of itself is only about half the problem. So what the tobacco companies did very early on was introduce the substance of nicotine, which there's an analogy I'll share with you in a minute, but nicotine is the most highly addictive substance that we can provide you with. It alters your brain and imbalances your brain, so you want more of it. A former very well-standing clinician that I worked with said if we could put nicotine in Viagra, we'd make a fortune. I can't believe I just told that joke again. I'm gonna get in so much trouble. But it's true. You know, nicotine is an absolutely addictive substance. So it alters the chemical, it creates a chemical imbalance for you to want to do compulsive. Now, I'm not a Pollyanna around this. There are individuals, people with mental health issues that will require some form of addictive properties to enable them to function at a normal level. But what we've seen with Minister Butler and this government's changes to the National Tobacco Act in recent years is to start to down-titrate or downplay the amount of nicotine in it, so that every tobacco stick will now have a warning on it, not the packet, but every stick from next year. Every packet will require an insert encouraging individuals to take up other options, quit, nicobate, other things. But the best example, you know, and some of people that tend not to like the positions that the Lung Foundation have said, but nicotine is an occurring substance in tomatoes. Yeah. Is there anyone in the room addicted to a tomato? You have to have 5,000 tomatoes to have one packet of cigarettes. So seriously, unless you're in Lygon Street, you've got no excuse. Because that's the argument that we've been putting up for. And all the way through, and there is a really interesting happening in smoking at the moment. You may have observed in a lot of movies, a lot of shows at the moment, that there is a lot more smoking happening. That's not by accident. That's corporate predatory behaviour and paid endorsement getting around Australia's very tough smoking regulations. They are actually paying movie houses and actors to smoke and vape onto. So the F1 next year won't have the car that has View on it, which is the e-cigarette manufacturer. It won't, because you're not allowed to advertise that anymore. Find a new sponsor. So the real problem, we believe, is the lack of transparency by these companies who say to us, and I think this is, I need to be careful again how I say it because I'll get another injunction, who say to us they want to unsmoke the world. But I don't see them wanting to unsmoke developing nations in the Asia Pacific region, where they are constantly fighting in those nations' highest courts to overturn plain packaging legislation that Nicola Roxon here in Victoria introduced. They want to stop the limitation of nicotine in their products. So, Chris, it's a really fascinating area that intersects with how corporate should behave. And one of the things that my board and I have been calling on is large corporations that say that they are woke, inverted commas, to quote Ricky Gervais. And I have to say, companies, the large supermarket brands like Woolies and Coles and others, not just those, who sell tobacco and continue to sell tobacco, a product that kills 3 out of 5 long-term users. So I think we do need to take nicotine absolutely seriously, which is why we fought tooth and nail to get nicotine cigarettes, e-cigarettes banned in Australia, because it was hooking the next generation. They were going the opposite way, from vapes to cigarettes. The only demographic in Australia that's seen a small increase in traditional tobacco products is what age group? Young people. 15 to 18, 18 to 24. So we've learned nothing from the last 60 years, and they've sold us this, quite frankly, lie. But it's a great question. Happy to talk to you about nicotine for hours, because it's one of my, I've got to get off, one of my specialities.
Thank you, Mark. That was just fantastic. Thank you so much. Do not go, because I have to present you with a gift from Melbourne Rotary. They are 200% wilderness wear socks made by our very own Phil Endersby. They're highly prized.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. So, do you need a photo? Okay. Terrific. Okay, in closing, I'd like to thank our visitors and guests for attending. Thanks to MC Bob Glindeman and Reflection Robert Fisher, and our lunch setup and reception teams for their weekly effort in making this meeting happen. A reminder, next week we'll have our monthly evening meeting. The focus will be on mental health. It will be a free Zoom-only meeting. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Karam Musa, emergency physician, Director, Emergency Department, John Faulkner Private Hospital, and author. His topic will be From Defeats to Defining Moments, Unleashing Mindset Powers, 6 p.m. next Wednesday.